Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So today we're going to be talking about the latest iteration of the Heroes Path, specifically the Anniversary Path, because once again, this time of year, it is Plarium's anniversary. I believe they said their 16th anniversary of the gaming company Plarium. And this is, of course, different from the Raid anniversary that we had a few months ago, where we had the fusion for Lord Entertainer Fabian. So in this case, if we hop all the way down to the bottom, we have a decent mix of rewards, not unlike what we had for this similar path from last year, but you can get a Void Shard, you can get a Primal Shard, a couple Legendary Tomes, a Sacred Shard, as well as an Eternal Soulstone. But unfortunately, on the flip side, things are not as, let's say, affordable or achievable as they were last year, which is a little bit of a disservice, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So if you do want to garner yourself some points for the sake of this Anniversary Path, it will be a combination of upgrading champions and getting artifacts and accessories, i.e. champion training and dungeon divers, as you can see here in the info tab. In terms of how that correlates to different milestones, we'll go over a couple ones that I've highlighted thus far. So the first thing to note here is that this is a very, very straightforward path. So you basically, you don't really have to come down the middle, I don't think, because everything you really want is here on the sides. But you come down the left and or the right hand side, you get the keys if you need be, and unfortunately you do need both keys if you do want to come down the center path to get the primal and or the legendary tome. But essentially, yeah, left hand side, right hand side, either or, come down and get whatever you want. The good thing is, though, if you don't care about the legendary tomes or the primal and you just want to go straight to the sacred or the eternal, you can definitely do that and bypass the whole key part of the path, but you would forfeit the immortal soulstone as well as the void shard, so it kind of depends what your goals are. But anyways, I'm digressing here. So the first thing to talk about is the void shard here, which is a pretty straightforward, straight down the right hand side path that will cost you 10,250 points. That's definitely the cheapest thing if you wanted to kind of barely participate in this and just get a little bit of something for your efforts. Void shard's not a bad deal, I would say. The primal shard is a big step up there because you'd have to come down the entirety of the right hand side, get the key, entirety of the left hand side, get that key, and then also come down the middle, which you probably should unlock this path here towards to loop around back towards the side, just to make it a little bit easier to come down back to the center here. And if you did take that path, then it would cost you a total of 31,500 points to get the primal shard, and of course you would add 10,000 to that, 41,500 if you wanted to get one of the legendary tomes, and another 10k on top of that if you wanted to get both legendary tomes. So that is nearly triple the points it would cost you to just get the void shard. So just keep that in mind once again, depending on what your goals are. If you wanted to bypass all of the key nonsense itself, you can then just come down one of these straight paths here, come loop around, come through the chaos ore, grab the sacred for a grand total of 36,250 points, or conversely, come down the right hand side equivalent, come down to the Eternal Soulstone for a grand total of 39,250 points. So as always, let's hop over to the spreadsheet, which will be linked in the description box down below if you'd like to check it out for yourself. And note that there are multiple tabs in the spreadsheet, and we specifically are in the Heroes Path Calculator tab. So I have included the top 3 items that I think most people would be striving for. So legendary tome, just getting one of them, getting the sacred shard, or getting the eternal shard, and this is how many points it would cost you. And in terms of the spreadsheet itself, the main thing to focus on here is, of course, the dungeon diver section. I have the amount of coins per run and amount of coins per energy that you will get for running the various stages that most people are going to be running, all the way up through the highest difficulties of normal mode and the most farm difficulties of hard mode. So depending on where you are, you can kind of see how many coins you're going to get. But as always, when it comes to dungeon divers in Heroes Path, they are just kind of bonus points. I would never ever try to max out an entire event with dungeon divers. The points are absolutely terrible, and you would just never get there, or it would take a ridiculous amount of energy that's not even worth quantifying. That's how bad it is. But nonetheless, you'll get some credit for doing dungeon runs and or running the campaign, which is good because there's of course also the champion training aspect of it, which is highlighted down here. And we have 2 rows here. Per capita means that this is the amount of coins you're going to get for making each individual tier of chicken and or 6-star champion, and that does include brewing them a little bit, 2 to 3 to 4 brews depending on the tier. And then cumulative, it just means that we're accounting for the fact that in order to make the higher tier chicken or champion, you will need to feed the lower tiers into them to make that, and that will obviously give you more points overall. So depending on how you want to look at it, I have both ways in the spreadsheet. So if we map from the rewards to what it would cost in terms of champion training, you could say that if you wanted to get the legendary tome, you'd basically have to make from scratch 2 6-star champions, give or take. And obviously, again, you're going to be getting some credit from dungeon divers from running the campaign, so it's a little bit less than that, but that's just a way to kind of think about it in your head. Versus, the sacred or the eternal, you basically would have to make 1 6-star champion from scratch, and then a couple of 5-star chickens towards the next one. Now, the good thing is that this event is 4 days long, so that's not, relatively speaking, too tall of an order to do over the course of 4 days. And in fact, I've done that many times for various champion training events. But this does feel just a lot more expensive than it usually is. I want to say that typically Legendary Tomes in Hero's Path are kind of in the ballpark or neighborhood of like 25,000 points or so, 20,000 points. So having it be way beyond that in like the 40,000 point range is kind of extreme just to get one tome, and it just doesn't feel worth it to me. So personally, as you might be able to tell here, I'm not going to be participating in this particular path, which kind of pains me because I do love a good champion training session. But I think my main decision point was that if they were going to offer a mythical tome, because of course for me being in the end game, those are a little bit more valuable than legendary tomes at the moment. That's definitely something that I would have gone for in this case, just because there's no soulstone aspect of this, there's no shard aspect of it. It's just purely grinding in the campaign and or running dungeons, but mostly just grinding in the campaign. And so that would be worth it in my opinion to grind for a mythical tome, because that was all ridiculously hard to come by. But because that's not really there, I don't really feel compelled to participate in this particular Hero's Path. Sacred Shard is somewhat tempting, but as you guys might know if you follow me, I do have a decent amount of Sacred Shards, so I don't really need one, and I'd rather be doing other things, more specifically in my case farming Sand Devil, because there is a fusion of course starting later this, or I guess next week, and so I'd like to get in as much off fusion events stuff in terms of using my energy as I can get before we have to grind the next fusion, who does look pretty impressive, at least on paper, and we'll kind of see with the multipliers, but I digress. But yeah, even then, an Eternal Soulstone could be useful, but I find that these are kind of like underwhelming is probably like the best word to say it. Like obviously they can have a massive payout if you get, a 6-star mythical soul or whatever that pops out of it, but then, when you get a 5-star epic for someone who's just useless, it feels really, really disheartening, and I'd have to grind, as we saw with the numbers, you'd have to grind a decent amount, not a crazy amount, but a decent amount to get it, and I feel like it just wouldn't really pay off in the end versus, getting all the oils that I need to ascend my gear and whatnot. But again, that's just me in the end game. In terms of my formal recommendation for you guys, I think this is a good opportunity, especially if you need to be developing champions in your account for whatever you're progressing in next. Champion training is never a bad thing to do. But in terms of priority, I would definitely say the Sacred's probably the most desirable thing to go for that would help the most people, and perhaps even trying to go for the Sacred and the Void might be enticing to majority of people, just more champions or more chances of more champions. The Primal Shard on its own is definitely a bit steeper, but if you're going all the way out there to get one or both of the legendary tomes, which again could be feasible over the course of 4 days depending on how much energy you have, but you get a Primal Shard along the way for doing that, as well as the Void and the Eternal Soul or Immortal Soulstone. So the legendary tomes could be worth it because you're getting more things along the way. And so overall, I do think if you're in the mood for champion training, this is a pretty decent deal, just because you don't have to worry about most people pulling shards that you might not have. Everyone can do champion training at any point as long as you have the energy and or the gems to convert into energy to do so. So yeah, that is going to do it for the free-to-play review of the anniversary path for 2025. Let me know in the comment section down below how you plan to approach this particular path. Are you interested in the legendary tomes, the Sacred Shard, or the Eternal Soulstone, or even something lesser than that, or joining me in skipping this one, depending on where you are in the game. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel. And also feel free to hit the subscribe button down below if, and only if, you are enjoying the content on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.